Look at Gaga. She's the creative director at Polaroid. What the fuck does she know about cameras? All right, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you for tuning in to Requiem for a Tuesday. As always, unfortunately, I am Adam Pecora. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you're doing well. As promised, we got the Joker double feature this week. And boy, what an eventful watch Folie, Deux was. And we will get there shortly. Probably close it out with the Sports Corner weekly picks. Exciting. I was crying. What a beautiful weekend for the Chicago Bears. What more to say? The future's bright. And let's hope the same is true for this podcast. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Requiem for a Tuesday, wherever you listen. Share it with your friends. Share it with your family. Share it with your coworkers. If you hear a lot of creaky leather, I added this vintage chair into the mix here. It makes for a great aesthetic. We just had it sitting on the back porch. I figured, why not? Could use a back to my seat, but man, this creaky leather. So I'm working on it. It's going to pop in here and there. But believe me, I've already cut out some big ones. So, you can only do so much. But I'm trying. Anyway. Check out the links in the description below. We got music. We got links to Microwave Minutes. Justice may resume creating that show again, but, if he doesn't, go take a look. There's some funny stuff in there, some good moments. At least when I was on it, it was good. Zing. Anyway, we got music as multiplex, both individually, Chef Juice, Wolfx, streaming everywhere. Yeah, anything that says Wolfx with a BDSM vibe to the album art was not me. Somebody took the name, and when I said something about it, they were like, yeah, whatever. So that's that. And somebody else can have it. The issue was just like, can you just figure out how to not have it show up under my name? And they're like, where's the link to the music? It's like, you don't need the link to the music. I told you it shows up under your name. Look up your own name. You will see my music. That's the problem. You should be upset about it too. I digress. Mine was first. So. It's unfortunate. What can you do? I need to start doing hip hop because I want my name to be Big Lunch. And that's sick. The problem is, no matter how much you can write, it doesn't mean you can perform it. That's the tricky part. It's not even just that it would be this voice, which we can manipulate. That's fine. It's just you really got to approach the booth. You know what I mean? To hit the mic like that, it's just not something your boy was built for. Maybe I'll practice. Maybe everything can move over to Big Lunch. Because I think that is more appropriate for where I'm at nowadays. But look for that coming soon. What am I even talking about? Check out all the links in the description below. RFAT.bigcartel.com for the merch. It's also part of that. The link trees have all the stuff. Go look at it. Subscribe. All that stuff everywhere. Do it. And Instagram, adam.rfat. Whatever. It's all there. Joker. So, rewatched Joker on Thursday prior to my IMAX screening of Folie, Deux. No big deal. That's right. I had $8 more to spare. Not really, though. Actually, could kind of use it, sadly. Anyway, I need a rock to get through the night. Let's see. So it's mostly as I remember it, and I'm sure you've seen the original Joker, so we don't need to get into this like beat by beat necessarily. Although I will probably end up doing that because I'm simplistic in my narrative structures. What can I say? An amateur, perhaps. Anyway, Joaquin Phoenix, here's the thing. Performance phenomenal, both films. I think it's undeniable. Now, to me, the biggest thing is to look at the marketing for both of these films before they were released, right? So, this was like the origin to the Joker, slightly inspired by The Killing Joke, but also really just a fusion of Taxi Driver and The King of Comedy. And it is mostly The King of Comedy. And to be honest, I had lagged on seeing The King of Comedy. So this was the first time I saw Joker post King of Comedy. Ooh, that was a P in there. I apologize. And so it made the movie a little better. Also, what made the movie a little better is that it is removed from the weird incel threats that they chose to put on the news. Like, all of a sudden, it was like Columbine era broadcasting. Like, maybe this was a stroke of genius by the studio that they like got this into the news somehow. But they were basically just like, this is like a rage baiting incel movie. There will be shooters. Like, maybe that wasn't literally said, but like that was the vibe. That was like, this is going to incite riots. It's like, it's a Batman movie, and I guess, there's pretty blatant social commentary in it that applies to today. The main theme of the movie is just how inequality is bad, and literally at the Murray Franklin show at the end, like part of his like big yell speech, which he really nails, it's excellent, but it's just like, whatever, this is your fault. Like, this is what happens, blah, 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 blah. Whatever that whole thing is, where it's just a very clear, statement on today's America or whatever, which I'm all for. Remember when everybody, like the CIA or whoever, got everyone to abandon financial inequality as the major gripe in America, and it has now all of a sudden turned into like everyone versus everyone about everything but that, because it's just poor people infighting about all these bullshit nothing things. Anyway, we don't need to get into that necessarily, but we were making progress. The rich are still the biggest problem. Anyway. Listen, I remember being excited for the movie, but not necessarily thrilled. I thought it was odd that Todd Phillips was doing it, but, to his credit, this movie's good, and it's the point I was trying to make about all of the marketing thing is that far removed from all that, like it's truly just a distant memory. I have no feeling of that, if that makes any sense. So, like, this was just me watching a movie, no bullshit, no baggage around it, which didn't need to be there to begin with. And that also made this a better watch. And Todd Phillips is a very skilled filmmaker. It was apparent, even really, if you watch back to The Hangover, I mean, it's like truly filmed like a blockbuster, like not like a comedy. And I would say that is the case, maybe less so for Joker, but that's because Joker wants to have more of like an independent feel. I remember feeling, that's really what this is going to be, I guess. It's going to be my assessment to how I remember this movie, to how I viewed it now, if that's useful at all. Let's see. I remember the whole intro thing going long, but it didn't really. I mean, I would say my biggest gripe still about definitely both films, the second film more so, is at fault for this, but it seems to be an intention where they just keep telling you that tensions are high. The city is boiling over. There's chaos everywhere. And now you see it from Arthur's perspective. Like, he literally gets beat up by like a bunch of kids. But is that necessarily an inflection that like the entire city is suffering and in trouble and that there's crime everywhere? I mean, I guess. I would say that children are terrifying. So, you know, you could get beat up by a group of kids pretty much anywhere. Anyway, you know, then his coworker gives him the gun. They're all mean, whatever. The thing with his neighbor, so another thing, I remember with his neighbor that them revealing that she wasn't really there all the times that they showed him with her. I felt that was a little offensive to me at the time, because it's like, obviously she said, "Why are you in my apartment?" Like, that was the clear thing. I didn't mind it this time. It went by a lot faster. It really is just like a couple of stills that they show and then it just goes away. The stuff with his mom is pretty unbearable, but that's because she's unbearable. So that's kind of the thing. The stuff with just Thomas Wayne, talking about Thomas Wayne, running into Thomas Wayne, none of that was interesting to me. That is still the weakest part of the movie and feels forced, especially because then, you know, the whole reveal is just that the mom was a narcissistic lady who lived with him, or worked for him, and crafted like just this whole narrative. And it's just like, okay, so then like, why did we spend so much time talking about him, I guess? And then he goes to the house at one point and interacts with Bruce, who looks like he's maybe like 12. And then you're like, Joaquin Phoenix is like 50. So he's supposed to be Joker. And now this question gets answered in the second movie either way. But the first one does do a decent job. Because if you look at like the papers when they're rifling through them, I just wanted this for me. Like, for this movie to work standalone, I want it to work to where he becomes the Joker in the future and then has to fight Batman and whatever. He is at least 3 years old when he is given up for adoption or whatever happens to him. He gets placed into some home or something. And then so anytime from like 3 to 5 or 7 or whatever is when all that goes down. So he is like 35, 37 years old, let's say. Looks terrible for it, but I mean, he is in completely malnourished, smoking a lot of cigs, yada, yada. I can buy it, okay? And then Bruce Wayne just on sight looks like he's like 12, 13. So to me, that's a little much, but it's reasonable. Those guys could be fighting in the future. So that kind of made me feel better about it. Now, as I mentioned when I did The King of Comedy on this show, I do retroactively wish that it was just Rupert Pupkin instead of this Murray Franklin. I don't know if Murray Franklin is a late night talk show host in the Batman universe. I'm out of the loop. If you are that aware that it upsets you that I don't know that, you're too into Batman, for me. So congratulations on knowing that. You know, that's why I like sports. It takes up that part where you remember the dumb details, you know? Anyway. So, you know, they probably wouldn't be able to do that or whatever, and that just fucks with a whole nother line of things. But either way, that's interesting. I like that, you know, the fact that he shot those guys on the train. It didn't really seem like that was even a guy off his meds pushed to the brink type thing. He literally needed to defend himself. I mean, 3 dudes were jumping him. I will say, in what world would 3 finance bros, like, sure, they would be harassing a woman for sure. I'm not trying to deny that, especially when they're drunk. In what world would 3 finance bros see like a crazy looking guy in a clown suit who is clearly down on his luck. Like, this was after he had gotten fired. No, this is not after he got fired. Yes, it is after he got fired, because he dropped his gun at the children's hospital, which you don't bring that in. You know, that's kind of on you. So they see the down on his luck clown who looks terrible, malnourished, laughing maniacally, can't stop it, is clearly like just a disaster. In what world are you like, let's go fuck with this guy like it's high school? I get it's a movie. You know, you can make any reasoning you want. I'm just saying, like, this seems to be a somewhat realistic take on the whole thing, right? So I don't know. That just bothered me a little. But then, yeah, they're kicking the shit out of him. Of course he shoots him. Now, you know, the one guy runs away. Does he need to chase him down and murder him? No, not necessarily. And then does he need to chase the other guy down, like off the subway? Definitely not. So, you know, he is at fault to an extent. But I will say it was self-defense. You know, ultimately. And then he kind of becomes a symbol of the unrest with the clown, and the clown masks start coming everywhere. And that's great. And then he does stand up, and it's terrible. And I do wish a little bit that it wouldn't, that maybe he has the laughing fits, but some of the jokes at least land. Because I will say one of the things about King of Comedy that was interesting was that, you know, the guy was obsessed with comedy. He was obsessed with, what's his name? Jesus. I can't think of the character's name, but he was obsessed with Jerry Lewis's character, and then goes on the show and does well because he's mimicking it, and he's, you know, he's actually learning something. Now, I'm not saying that this character necessarily like needed to be funny, but like the idea that he didn't even just like understand what would or wouldn't be, you know, you make the argument that the guy's nuts and off his meds. I get it. That's fair. But just the fact that he had like zero ability at all, I would say is a little much. Cause even in The Killing Joke, like he's a failed comedian, but like, is the guy just pathetic? I don't know. Didn't read it. Again, if that upsets you, then that's kind of fair. It's pretty major work. I probably should know that. So then he runs into him, and it's like, that's whatever. And then he beats him. Thomas Wayne like punches him. It's like, okay, that's a little crazy. Then our boy shows up. Fucking Brian Tyree Henry at the hospital. He steals the records, finds out the truth about his mom. That she was, you know, Thomas Wayne was telling the truth. She was just a crazy lady who worked for him, made up a story. She adopted him. Oh, I think that's what it was. I think she adopted him at 3 years old or something. Maybe he was a baby. I don't know. And then he was like brought in to the state after because she was being abused for years, and like in like crazy ways, you know, not in the worst ways. He didn't just get like a little spanking. Let's put it that way. And then that pretty much fucked up his whole life. And then I think she got him back when he was like 7 or something. I don't really know. Anyway, so once he finds that out, that is when it's just a spiral. And this is when the movie really starts to pick up, though. It's once he kills his mom, that's when we are now on the ball is rolling down the hill, and the momentum just picks up and picks up and picks up. And the movie's pretty electric from this moment on. Because at this point, everything has finally been set up, and now he just starts killing. So right before he goes to the hospital, or whatever, my timeline's a little off here, but at some point he gets made fun of on the show, and then they call him to do the show. I think that this is after he kills his mom, but either way. You know what? This is after he kills his mom. And then right after he gets invited to be on the show, he kills the other clown. And he just like really didn't need to do this. Like if you watch the movie back, like in the moment, they are kind of just there being nice, but he's just already snapped and he kind of just kills him because he was mean to him. I would say this one is the only one in the movie where it's truly just like, well, I mean the end one, obviously, I guess. But this one's like truly like not really that justified. Like, yeah, the dude fucked him over at work. But you also didn't have to take the gun from the guy. And, you know, you also could have just straight up called him out. Because the guy gives him the gun, which he then fucks up and gets fired for, and then talks shit about Arthur as he's leaving. Like about guns. And it's like, you're asking yourself to be implicated here. Anyway, so the guy is just like a genuine prick. Then he fucks him up. I'm saying midget, you know, come on, we're saying midget nowadays. We're back to midget. Anyway, the midget who's Australian can't get out, and it's pretty funny. He kind of has to let him go, and the dude runs away. And something I completely forgot, honestly, from the first watch entirely, was that his plan was to kill himself on the show. So he did want to do the big thing, and the moment just kind of took him over in that moment. And I think that's kind of key for the sequel a little bit, too. He asks him to introduce him as Joker, and that's great. The makeup looks great. He does the dancing on the stairs after this, and then the detectives that are looking for him for the subway killings themselves are after him. Shout out Shea Wiggum. And that interrupts that. That leads to a chase. Then they get on the train, but all the protesters are there, and that's a great way they get out of it. All of that's awesome. It's really smart. The cop shoots a protester naturally, trying to get through the train. They all mob him, and he gets away. At this point, Joaquin is pretty much full Joker. He's a lot of fun. And now through the movie, he is dancing, but like to no music, a lot. The guy's weird. We get it, off the meds. As he transforms to Joker, especially like on the staircase itself, full music. And then on the show itself, full music. So it does kind of allude to the sequel. Now, maybe I was looking for this. Because they obviously wrote this without the plan for a sequel to begin with. But it's just interesting how it does have ties and connections to the sequel, albeit they're in completely different movies. Then he's on the show, confesses to everything, and does a rant and shoots Murray instead. And that's way crazier. Starts a big loot, and it's awesome. Somebody saves him. Like, they hit an ambulance into the cop car and let him out, and then there's fires, and really cinematic and awesome. And this is my biggest criticism still of the movie. This bothers me more than anything. End credits should go when he's standing on the cop car. Like, that should be the official stamp. This is the ending of this movie. It would be way more impactful, in my opinion. And then let the credits roll for a little bit, and then do the little scene with him with the therapist. Or cut that entirely. I don't need it, really. But whatever. The ending's good. This movie's good. I think it's better than I remember, and it's less... Again, without the stigma of all the stuff that was forced onto here. Also, there's great stand-up cameos in there. Mark Maron's in there. What's his name? Our guy, Sam Morrill, is doing stand-up at the open mic night he's at. There's some good cameos mixed in there. So I loved it. Frankly, I liked it more on this watch. I'm glad I watched it again. little nitpicks here and there, but not a ton that I would really take out. It doesn't bother me how similar it is to Taxi Driver and stuff. I think that being able to connect Batman with that is very interesting, and it's very appropriate. This felt true to Gotham. It felt true, it didn't feel like a Scorsese movie, but it felt true to the vibe of those movies. Getting De Niro is awesome. Zazie Beetz, love her. Ever since she showed up on Atlanta, I was like, oh, she's got something. So I'm happy to see her in anything. And, overall was into it. And then Folie, Deux. None of this was supposed to happen. The movie made a ton of money. Talk about a comedy cameo, by the way. Shout out Tim Dillon being in there. That's fucking awesome. That was really great to see. So this movie was not supposed to happen. Joker's a surprise $1 billion hit. And it's like, well, basically we have to do this. Joaquin Phoenix got the bag, and he was great. He won an Oscar for the first movie, so why not doing this? And he seemed interested, so why would they not do it? So the initial concept, we're going to go all the way back before we even get into the thing. So right away, they thought about doing the sequel as a theater show. Like, they were already thinking outside of the box from the second it goes. I'm reading this from Wikipedia, but it's sourced from somewhere, I'm sure. They did not consider making a conventional sequel depicting Arthur's development into Batman's nemesis by turning him into the Clown Prince of Crime or putting him in charge of a criminal syndicate, despite the original film's depiction of the murder of Bruce Wayne's parents. This was always the plan. Everything I read from the beginning said this. Because especially if it's a truly direct sequel, now this is like almost the immediate aftermath, Folie, Deux. We're talking jumping 20 years. That wouldn't make sense for what this movie was because it was grounded. And it's an origin story. Now, they made this a true sequel to the origin story. I'm going to get into it, but it was never the plan. Phillips preferred to focus on how Arthur's breakdown captivated Gotham. So basically, the Joker movement is what he's interested in. It says, being interested in examining how the very idea of entertainment went from movies and television to whatever scandal the news currently aired. That is 100% what this movie is about. Also being about, we'll get into that. But yeah, it's about how violence replaced television. Anyway, so as we continue on with some of the before stuff. Okay, here we go. This is all just on Wikipedia, by the way. Anybody could read this at any time. I do remember this stuff, but I want to get it right. I remember reading this stuff. I apologize. I don't remember it, which is why I'm reading it. Phillips and Silver began developing a sequel while still considering Phoenix's musical concept. Phoenix wanted to start a Broadway show. Phillips found the idea risky and, quote, dangerous enough to give the film audacity and complexity, with music, dance, drama, courtroom drama, comedy, happiness and sadness, and a traditional love story. Now, that is, it is a little bloated in that regard, but all of those things are exactly what happened. This was in 2020. So basically, COVID happened, and they're like, well, theater's not going to happen. So let's just start developing the theater idea as a film. Aware that young moviegoers may not be interested due to preferring usual comic book films, Phillips banked on their appetite for something new and different to help the film differentiate itself from remakes and reboots. That's where he was wrong, even though that idea is absolutely great and should be how people think, and it is what he executed. Literally just he was wrong on banking on people wanting something good. Now, if you just think this movie is bad, that is one thing, but it's more of just like, I don't like that it's different. That bothers me. Anyway, Phoenix suggested the idea of teaming with a female Joker that could serve as his dance partner in a kind of psychotic tango. This led them to introducing Harley Quinn. I'm all for it so far. I got nothing against anything that's going on here. So once they announced that it was officially in development, that was 2022 when it was like officially going. 2023, James Gunn confirms it. And Phillips's goal for the film was to make it feel like it had produced by crazy people, but struggled with referring to the film as a musical as it lacks traditional musical numbers, which is true. They kind of use song to communicate some dialogue or just emotion, but it's not necessarily like they're breaking into song and dance and like everyone in the movie is all of a sudden taking part in this, like in a theater where it's like, you know, I'm the cop in the scene, but I'm singing and dancing with you. It's more of just like just Joker and Harley sing to each other or individually, and it happens only in their head in like during a moment, and then they'll go back to exactly where we left. Like they're in conversation. He's being interviewed by somebody. Now suddenly he breaks into song. One time it's like real though. So they play with like how it's used, but I would agree that it's not a traditional musical really in that way. It's more of just like showing thing. They're more being used thematically than being a musical number. They don't really sing. They sing like these characters would sing, which I love. So anyway, all of that just to sum up my point in that this is what you should have expected. This is what I expected. And that was why I was down on it. See, I was down on it when it was announced because this is what was announced. And I'm like, well, I don't see how that's going to be good, especially given having seen the other one more recently. It's like, well, it sounds like that could backfire pretty crazy. I just don't like musicals. Again, I didn't know. I didn't read the like that second part pretty much where it says it's not going to be a traditional musical. Either of no shit, it's not going to be a traditional musical. But either way, I was just down on the idea. I don't like musicals. I like obscure, weird musicals, though. Like the ones that I do like are not the ones that you would typically peg. Anyway, so the movie opens, and now I'm in IMAX, mind you. So, and I have a completely open mind. And the fact that all of a sudden the reception is just very negative and the ads seem to just kind of go away, and it just seemed like the way a narrative came about the other one right before release, one came about this one. And yeah, it just seemed like the movie kind of vanished. And then all of a sudden people are like, what the fuck is this? They're singing? What's going on? This isn't the Marvel origin story I wanted. Or I'm sorry, DC, I apologize. This isn't the Batman origin again that I thought it was going to be. Why isn't Joker fighting? Why are they singing? Why, And to me, this movie being like panned in the way that it is doesn't really make sense, just because I don't really think there's any part of it that is poorly done really in any way. Todd Phillips definitely leveled up as a filmmaker in this yet again. I thought the way that it was the filmmaking was brilliant. Everything, the way it was shot was awesome. It looked great. The pacing was pretty good, although it was generally just a little bit too long. But there wasn't a specific moment where I'm like, this is dragging out too long. And I was pretty engaged the whole time. This movie kind of does a thing where it keeps teasing you that it's like, oh, he's going to go back into Joker. And then he kind of does. And then they kind of pull the rug out from under you. And then they kind of do that over and over, but in different ways. And every time that never steered me away. That just kept me more engaged to where I was like, I genuinely have no idea where this movie's going to go. I thought all of the decisions were completely artistic. Like, I kind of loved this movie, and that's kind of what the negative reviews coming out led me to believe. I was like, going in, my thought was all of a sudden, okay, not all of a sudden. Going in, my thought to this was going to be like, I'm interested just for the hell of it. It's the new Joker. I got to do it for the show at the very least, but I'm just interested. Like, what is this going to be like? And I was pretty much, I said it at the end of last week, this is pretty much going to go one way or the other. This is going to be a complete disaster or it's going to be incredible. And I don't really see there being a gray area. And then all of a sudden, when all this marketing and review hits that's super negative, I'm like, wait a second. If everybody is all in agreement that they hate this much, I'm going to put on my little contrarian pantsuit. And I'm kind of into this now. I'm like, oh, wait, is this movie like an art piece? Is this going to be like awesome? And it was. So I was locked in from the second this movie started. I did not know that this was going to happen at the beginning. I safely avoided any type of like spoiler. I watched the one trailer and I was skeptical. And the trailer was cut in a way that makes this look like more of a pop film. And it's not. This is like a brutal drama slog that takes the $200 million they were given, which is insane, and just does whatever they want with it. It truly does kind of feel like the goal of the movie was to, I guess, show you what Arthur was thinking the whole time in the first movie. Like, the examples I gave of him dancing to silence, like they took the budget and they're like, okay, so now on a sound stage, we're going to build some crazy setup like a vintage Fred Astaire musical would have, let's say. And we're just going to film that as an actual musical take. No more dancing to silence. And that's like essentially what the musical numbers are throughout the movie. They're never... And I think they work, and I like Joaquin Phoenix's voice. He can sing. Lady Gaga obviously can sing, and she sings with a very raw voice, which is that's my favorite thing in music anyway. I tend to prefer singers that sing in a more raw tone, and I don't like the polished stuff. And she kind of notches it in there every now and then. And that's not to say there's no weaknesses to this movie either. She is not utilized enough. Her arc doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. It's not really necessary that it does, though. So I'll just kind of break this down in order, I guess. So it opens with this animated sequence, and I did not know that this was going to happen. And it apparently was made by Sylvain Chomet, French animator who made The Triplets of Belleville, a film that I adore. I actually saw that in theaters as a kid. He has a very unique animation style, and it's adapted a little more for Joker, for sure. But it explains why it was so good. And it's essentially the Joker on stage having his own talk show, like as if he took over for Murray Franklin, and his shadow kind of takes over him, and he is arrested. And so I didn't know that this would just be an illusion for the whole movie, where essentially what that's telling you is the Joker character got Arthur Fleck beaten and thrown in prison. And the Joker character is larger than life and is a movement in Gotham, but Arthur Fleck is in prison and is going to get the electric chair. So this is set like 2 years later. He had just been in Arkham the whole time awaiting his trial. And now, so this is like right before the trial is going to begin. And his lawyer, Catherine Keener, shout out, the plan is essentially that he developed a split personality, and the Joker personality killed the people. Which I would say is probably technically true. Like, watching back on the first movie, he kind of just developed a persona and went with it. Although, like I said, the subway killing was definitely self-defense. And then he just kind of used that to the character. Anyway, there's like a music therapy class in Arkham, and Lady Gaga, Harley Quinn, is there, and they basically are instantly in love. Whatever, it happens a little quick, but it's literally about two crazy people. And she's basically like, I love everything you did. Joker's awesome. Like, I respect everything you got going on. And he is basically like, great, I'll do anything for love. So I am Joker. And they're watching a movie, and she starts a fire. She reveals to him that she had burned down her parents' apartment, and they sent her there, and that's why she's there, basically. And then they try to escape because of the fire. It doesn't work. Arthur's in solitary. And then she somehow goes to solitary, and they're letting her out because he's influencing her, which doesn't make any sense. It's like, whatever. And then they bone. Quick comer, makes sense. I believe it was implying that he was a virgin because he asked her to put it in. He's a puss. But also, what can you do, man? Times are tough. If you don't know, you don't know. You got to learn somehow. And then he's interviewed by some guy because he's awaiting trial, and he basically goes off script a little bit and then starts singing. And that's the one time when it's like, it seems like he's singing for real, which makes him look extra crazy. And they still sprinkle in the DC stuff here. Like, Harvey Dent is who is like the prosecutor. Is that the term? Whatever. He's the DA, and that is who they're going against in the trial. And this movie basically turns into a courtroom drama. And it cuts back to him at the asylum. He has like a rapport with the guards, kind of, but they ultimately don't really take any shit from him. They just kind of use him for amusement. They don't really have any type of admiration or anything. Shout out Brendan Gleeson as one of the guards. And yeah, just way more cigarettes, way more just them trying to get. There's a lot more effort in just like beautiful shots. Like, I feel like this is a much more like expressionist film. Either way, whatever, if that's the right term. And maybe this was the IMAX. I don't know if this would be a lot different had I saw it in a traditional film setting, but anyway, they made it a lot better. And then the lawyer reveals during the trial that like she was lying to him the whole time, Harley, and her dad's not dead. She was not abused. She's from the Upper West Side. She's rich. Her dad's a doctor. She voluntarily committed herself. That's why she's able to walk around. That's why she was able to. I don't know how you get into fucking solitary. That's not really how that works. But either way, she checked herself in. She checked herself out. She never burned anything down. She basically was like, yeah, I just did all this for you, and I'm pregnant. Classic move. You want to lock a dude down as a crazy girl especially one who's like a virgin. You're pregnant, boom. Oh my God, we got to get married. We got to do the right thing. You know, he just starts losing his mind. And then she's like, I moved into your mom's apartment building and I'm making us a home. And he's like, I don't want to live there. It's like, yeah, you should have thought of that. Why the fuck would he want to live there? And so there's basically like there's pressure from his lawyer for him to be like, stop pretending that like you're Joker. Like this isn't going to get you anywhere. Like you're going to get sentenced and get killed. Like this isn't a game. There's not a scenario where like being the persona is going to like help, because you're just going to lose the trial. And Harley's like, well, I love Joker. Like she never even calls him Arthur, I don't believe. And she wants the persona. The pressure from everyone in the crowd is they want Joker. And, you know, again, there's all these allusions to like the movement being bigger. Now they do show a huge crowd outside. And it's just, but again, part of the poor writing on the Harley Quinn side is like, it's just immediately accepted though that she is like his guest of honor and that she gets like a premium seat in the court and stuff and whatever. And all that just seems a little odd, but it's just like little shit. But it's just like the stuff that she says just never gets resolved. He never even really, like, after she just says, yeah, I lied, I guess just because he's crazy, like they just move on right past it. Anyway. So that's all revealed. And then then he dismisses the lawyer. He gives in and they're all like, this is a huge mistake. He then represents himself. And like I said, there's times throughout the movie where you're just seeing a little more and a little more Joker. And now by the time he's representing himself, he is in full makeup. The judge is basically like, well, he's allowed to do this technically, so we're letting him do it. And he does like a full Colonel Sanders voice, and the performance is incredible throughout the movie, especially because they're asking a lot less of Joaquin Phoenix. So the fact that he's able to just turn it on and off is really crazy. It does really feel like he is channeling like a cartoon within himself. And he questions the midget guy and his neighbor, and then they both just say that's it. They both rest their case. And he clearly has an emotional back and forth with Gary, the midget, because he's trying to be Joker, and Gary was actually his friend, which is why Gary's all fucked up about what happened in the first one. And basically they're just like splitting trauma, and he's like, yeah, but I was nice to you. And he's like, it doesn't fucking matter, dude. You like murdered a guy in front of me. Like, I'm terrified. And the fact that we were friends and I liked you like makes it worse, doesn't make it better. Because like now I can't trust anything. And Arthur clearly gets emotional about that. And at one point, he kind of channels a little bit of the angry rant from the first movie. And, well, like the energy is the same. And he mentions that the guards are fat. And that's about it. And then afterwards, they fucking beat the shit out of him and then take him to the showers and rape him. So that was dark. Some are saying unnecessary. You know, is it necessary? No. But is it real? Unfortunately, it's real. You know, when rapes stop happening in prison, we can stop showing rapes in prisons in things. But, you know, just to show you how down this guy is. Anyway, so, you know, mixed into this, of course, is songs, and when they talk to each other, I would say, like, Lady Gaga doesn't have a lot, but she is dynamic and incredible when she is on screen, and I'm certainly not necessarily a big fan of hers in any way, but she's awesome. There's no denying it. Some of their songs, they're in, like, a Sonny and Cher type thing. That's where you're getting most of Joker in costume, is just during song on these weird, different, like, sound stage set musicals. And he does, like, one song in prison. They do great work in cutting cameras in with like TV feeds and camera feeds and just all this stuff. And I think visually it's incredibly dynamic the entire time. So then story wise, after he's raped, they then also, so he's gotten like more and more backing from his prisoners throughout the thing, especially the more he embraces Joker in the trial. It kind of goes even more where you kind of feel like an uprising about to happen. Another moment where they're kind of like building something up. And then one of his inmate buddies who was like really kind of closer with him and nicer to him, and they seem to kind of have a thing. He reps him like too hard, and the guards just straight up kill him. So a rape and a kill, same night, pretty crazy. And at that point, Arthur is just clearly very visibly just like defeated after the moment in the courtroom, combined with the powerless thing in the prison, another powerless moment where his friend gets killed. He wants to go back into the courtroom and be Joker, and he just can't. And he basically goes into the court for like his final thing or whatever. And he's just like, there's no Joker. Like, it was me. And it's like, holy fuck, that's what they're doing in here? That's what they're doing to where, like, fuck you guys. This movie's not even neither of these movies has even been about the origin of the Joker. It's about the origin of the movement that then spawned the origin of the Joker. This is like the true origin of everything that happened. So the first movie, that's how they flip it. The first movie is documenting how this whole is documenting the beginning of just unrest to how it backed into this clown themed underground not even underground, but just like unrest. Right? And so Harley Quinn storms out, and he's immediately found guilty right away. Boom. Bomb explodes. Courthouse opens. And you kind of go like, oh, okay. So he renounced the persona publicly, but, you know, now he's free, and that's going to be fine. And he's able to get out. Two guys in Joker masks recognize him, and they're like, we got you, man. We're going to save you. Like, this is all about to go happen. And you're like, oh, fuck. They're doing it. Actually, never mind. Like, he didn't renounce it. No, not the case. He bails on those guys because he's like, they just want me for Joker. Like, Joker's not real. It's not a thing. So basically, Arthur's whole thing was really just he wanted to be on TV. That was ultimately all his goal was, and he couldn't handle the power of any of this. And he wasn't ready to deal with any of this. And this was just the story of a mentally ill man who murdered a bunch of people, who was weak. The guy was incredibly traumatized the whole time from a bunch of stuff. He was never this criminal mastermind. So it ultimately does make sense, though, if you watch the first movie. Like, how would this guy have turned into who we know Joker to be in the end? It's technically not that believable that he would have then become this, like, criminal genius who's also ruthless. I suppose if you let the persona fully take over, whatever. But ultimately, that persona was just an entertainer. Hence all the musical scenes and all that stuff. So he then gets out and basically runs to his old apartment. He goes to the stairs, the famous stairs, and she's there. And she's like, no, fuck you. Like, I lied to you about having the baby, but like, I love Joker. Like, I don't love you. Like, you blew this. Like, we could have been Harley Quinn and Joker, and we're not. And then the police pull up and take him away. And he goes back to prison, and then they're like, you have a visitor. Cop disappears down the hallway. Classic prison moment. And he gets fucking shanked. And he dies. And that's it. And that's what happens when you murder a bunch of people. And this movie is basically a big fuck you to the audience. Number one, like, oh, you wanted something else? Too bad. You love fucking violence and whatever? Too bad. Like, you adore anti-heroes and you wanted to watch the ascension of the Joker, and now you're disappointed in me because I fucking killed this guy? Like, too bad. This is what actually happens when you go on a murder spree and try to start some weird, violent thing. Like, I don't think it was like a political statement in that way. I just mean to the fans, like, oh, you idolize the Joker, like, and you're upset to not see him kill more people? That's crazy. Oh, you love the MCU? Here's a big fuck you, or DCU, whatever. But I just mean, like, in terms of movies, like the MCU dominating the whole thing. Here's what I'm going to do with the DC property. Like, fuck you. You thought that my movie was like incel garbage. Like, that was not what this was. This was a statement on America. Stop idolizing violence. That's kind of still what it is. But at the same time, the movie was fucking sick, and I loved it. And then also, the guy who kills him then cuts a smile into his face, which means it still is the origin of the Joker. Like, they're still giving you what you fucking wanted, and it just turns out it took Arthur Fleck doing all this for somebody to take the persona over. And in theory, this still could be continued as a story where now this next guy is that guy. And guess what? We don't know who he is. We don't know what his first name is, like Arthur Fleck. So it's not as unrealistic. That maybe this is just some kid. This is a John Doe in the books of Arkham. And now he adapts and moves on. And that's that. And becomes Joker. Because the movement still doesn't go anywhere. Arthur Fleck's found guilty and then it explodes and whatever. Him just renouncing it at the end wouldn't ultimately really be enough for any of that to happen, because he was way more impactful. The fact that they blew up the courthouse in the first place, like, everything about that means that movement is already way too strong. So anyway, I think it still gives everything that it needs to give. And all the meanwhile being a big fuck you to everybody and being an art piece. And I loved it. And I don't really know what else I want to add to that. But I loved it. There's more that I could say, I'm sure. But I thought it was great, like, genuinely. I'm kind of shocked at how badly it's received, but look, it'll probably barely make a profit, but it wouldn't surprise me if down the line people started to come around on this. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm going to be the only guy who's on the train the whole time. I could see how, like, as a comic book movie fan, you would not be into this. But I think if you're a movie fan, this is a great movie. And they keep teasing you, and they keep fucking with you, and they keep challenging you. And I thought it was just fantastic. Really. Truly. Throw Tim Dillon in there especially. I mean, what more can you ask for? I mean, it just really subverts your expectations, like, in every way, and I just have a ton of respect for that. This is cinema, bro. All right. Can't wait to see how poorly that take ages. All right. Coming at you here. You hear the paper crinkling? You know what that means. It's time for Sports Corner. Week 5 edition. I'm going to breeze through this, as this has been a lengthier episode. Good week this week. Bye week started. Can't believe it. It must be very unfortunate to have a bye week this early in the season, unless you just so happen to need it. And we went a firm 9-5 this week. Recording post Monday Night Football. That's right, doing the late night grind for you, ladies and gentlemen. Bills Texans. I took the Texans. The Bills had no business being in that game, so technically I don't look at that game as much of a net negative. Jags Colts. I actually took the Jags. Wait, I took the Bills in the first game. Did I say that? I don't know. But I took the Jags in this one. Happened to be right. They're terrible. We'll get to the Bears at the end. Shouldn't be a problem. Ravens, Bengals. Had the Ravens. They tried to give it away, and the Bengals gave it right back. Sad for them, but Ravens looking pretty good. Dolphins, Patriots. Dolphins was the easy pick. Nothing to say there. Pretty sad stuff. Raiders, Broncos. I had the Raiders. Do the Broncos have a sneaky good defense? I don't know, but either way, both of those teams are a mess to me. I don't care. Jets, Vikings. Had the Jets. Big mistake. Aaron Rodgers, not good. Sam Darnold, also not good. I've been trying to tell you guys. This is the 2022 Vikings all over again. Browns, Commanders. Took the Browns. Big mistake on the Browns this year. I thought that they would win in spite of Deshaun Watson, and you can't. You just can't. He's just that terrible. Cowboys, Steelers. Had the Cowboys. What can you say? Justin Fields has had 2 300-yard games in his career, one of which on the Pittsburgh Steelers this season. He is 0-2 in such games. Caleb Williams 1-1 in 5 career starts. Let's put that to bed already. But I hope he keeps playing. We need that draft pick, and I am rooting for him. Let's be honest. Chiefs. Had the Chiefs. Couldn't watch it. Was at a screening of Terrifier 3. Fun stuff. But we knew what was going to happen there. Falcons, Bucks. Had the Falcons. Crazy game. Bucks deep. Disappointing. That's why they call it that. They had to evacuate also, so not ideal. Cardinals, 49ers. Definitely picked the 49ers. Who didn't? Giants, Seahawks. Had the Giants. My guy, Danny Dimes, looking alive. Love to see it. And I took the Rams over the Packers, and they could not get it done. Listen, Bears, Panthers, I, of course, had the Bears. That puts us at 9-5 for the week. If it doesn't, based on what I said, then I just misread my sheet. But I don't know. Maybe I didn't. But I did okay. So far, well above 500 for the year, which is surprising. These are all preseason picks. Listen, I'm going to close this out here with the Chicago Bears. That's finally the game that we've been expecting all season, a complete game all around, a couple mistakes here and there. The offensive line with backups in looks competent, as it should have. Like I said last year, they were at worst middle of the pack, and all we did was upgrade. It's funny how Ryan Poles doesn't invest enough in the offensive line, but at the same time, he shouldn't have drafted Darnell Wright and should have drafted Jalen Carter. So which is it? Which one should it be? You need to explain that to me. Javon Dexter is having such a better season than Jalen Carter. It's not even close. So either way, seems like the right move there. And we are just in prime position to where, a couple moves in the offseason, and we are prime time. But looking ahead to the Jaguars, look, they just got to stick with it. Keep doing what they're doing. Waldron's looking like less of a disaster hire and possibly maybe even a decent one. And look, the Jaguars are bad. London, not great for us, but I'm ready for it. And I'm also ready for bad. I'm a sleepy little boy. I love Caleb Williams. The Bears look like a real football team, possibly for the first time in my life. Now, it's been 1 week, but the Panthers put up points the last 2 weeks, and we completely shut it all down. So that's great, and I'm going to get out of here. So please share this episode, rate, review, subscribe to Requiem for a Tuesday, and if you like it, tell your friends. And if your friends like it, head and tell their friends. I don't know what I'm doing. Share the episode, rate, review, subscribe. Check out all the links in the description below. We got lots of good stuff for you. And remember, I are fat. You are fat. We are fat. Thanks for tuning in. Calculator.